Are you tired of the noise inside, the constant battle within? There's a path to quiet that storm, a way to find peace you never thought possible. Don't click away, because the final key I'm sharing will change how you see everything. Stay with me. Inner noise. So often we find ourselves adrift in a sea of thoughts, a relentless current of worries, anxieties, and memories that seem to pull us under. This inner landscape can feel like a battlefield, where peace is a distant dream, a forgotten shore. We wrestle with these feelings, trying to push them away, to silence the clamor within our own minds. But this struggle, this resistance, often only tightens the grip of our inner turmoil. It's a common human experience, this feeling of being overwhelmed by the activity within our own consciousness. We are not alone in this, even when it feels like we are the only ones fighting such an intense internal war. The weight of it can be immense, coloring every aspect of our lives, making even simple moments feel heavy and burdened. It's a profound weariness that settles deep within the spirit, a silent cry for respite from the ceaseless chatter that echoes in the chambers of our being. This isn't a failing, but a fundamental aspect of the untrained mind. This internal noise, this cacophony of the mind, is not a personal failing, nor is it unique to a few. It is, in many ways, the default state of a mind left to its own devices, a mind that has not yet learned how to find its own center, its own quiet harbor. We are conditioned by the world around us to constantly seek, to constantly do, to constantly analyze. Our minds are like powerful instruments, capable of incredible feats of creation and understanding. But if left untuned, they produce dissonance instead of harmony. Think of a wild horse, full of energy and spirit, but untamed. It gallops in all directions, often leading to exhaustion and confusion. Our minds, similarly, can run wild with thoughts, fears, and projections, taking us far from the present moment, far from any sense of inner stability. The challenge isn't to break the spirit of the horse, but to gently guide it, to work with its energy so that it can move with grace and purpose. This is the journey of understanding our inner noise. We often believe that if we just fight hard enough, if we suppress these unwanted thoughts and feelings with enough force, they will eventually surrender and leave us in peace. But the mind doesn't work that way. Imagine trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The more force you apply, the more ferociously it wants to spring back up. Our thoughts and emotions are much the same. When we label them as bad or unwanted and try to wage war against them, we inadvertently give them more energy, more power. This internal battle is exhausting and it rarely leads to lasting peace. Instead, it creates a cycle of resistance and resurgence, where the very act of fighting the negative deepens our entanglement with it. The illusion is that we can control the mind through force, but true mastery comes not from suppression, but from understanding, acceptance, and gentle redirection. It's about learning to observe without judgment, to allow thoughts to arise and pass without being swept away by them. The first step, then, on this path towards inner quietude is not to silence the noise, but to become aware of it, to acknowledge its presence without immediately reacting or judging. It's like stepping into a busy marketplace. At first, the sheer volume of sounds, sights, and smells can be overwhelming, but if you stand still for a moment, simply observing, you begin to distinguish individual sounds, to see the patterns, to notice the flow of activity without being lost in it. Similarly, we can learn to observe the flow of our thoughts and emotions. This is the practice of mindfulness, of bringing a gentle, curious awareness to our inner experience. It's not about emptying the mind, which is a common misconception, but about changing our relationship to what is happening within it. We learn to become the calm witness, the observer, rather than being completely identified with every thought and feeling that arises. This creates a space, a small gap, between us and our mental activity, and in that space, peace can begin to find a root. Modern life, with its incessant demands, its constant connectivity, and its glorification of busyness, often acts as an amplifier for this inner noise. We are bombarded with information, with stimuli, with expectations from the moment we wake until the moment we try to sleep. Our nervous systems are frequently in a state of heightened arousal, making it difficult to find moments of genuine rest and stillness. The pressure to perform, to achieve, to always be on leaves little room for introspection or for simply being. This external chaos inevitably seeps inward, fueling the mind's tendency to race, to worry, to plan endlessly. We are, in a sense, conditioning our minds to be perpetually agitated. Reclaiming our mental well-being, therefore, also involves making conscious choices about how we engage with the world around us, creating pockets of stillness in our daily lives, and learning to disconnect from the external clamor so we can reconnect with our inner selves. This requires courage and a willingness to go against the grain of a society that often equates stillness with unproductivity. Yet beneath all this noise, beneath the layers of conditioning and mental habit, there resides a deep longing for silence, for peace. It's an innate human need, like the need for food or shelter. We sense, perhaps unconsciously, that our true nature is not this agitated, restless state. We yearn for a sense of coming home to ourselves, to a place of inner stability and clarity. This longing is a powerful motivator, a guiding light that can lead us towards practices and ways of being that cultivate inner peace. It's the quiet whisper of the soul, reminding us that there is another way to experience life, a way that is characterized by less struggle and more ease, less reactivity, and more conscious response. The journey towards mental well-being is, in essence, a journey of uncovering this inherent peace that already exists within us, buried though it may be under the accumulated stress and anxieties of life. It's about remembering who we are at our core, beyond the turbulence of the mind. This remembrance is the beginning of healing, the dawn of a new way of relating to ourselves and the world. Mind's illusions. Our mind is a magnificent tool, capable of profound insight, creativity, and problem solving. Yet, it is also the source of much of our suffering, primarily because we tend to believe every thought it produces as absolute truth. The mind weaves stories, creates narratives, and projects fears and desires onto the screen of our awareness. These are its illusions, the mental constructs that shape our perception of reality and consequently our emotional responses. We become trapped in these stories, identifying with them so completely that we forget they are merely thoughts, not immutable facts. Understanding the illusory nature of many of our mental formations is a crucial step in freeing ourselves from their grip. It's like watching a movie. We can get completely engrossed in the plot, feeling all the emotions, but a part of us knows it's just a film. We need to cultivate a similar awareness with our thoughts, recognizing their power to affect us without being entirely consumed by them. This discernment is a skill that grows with practice and patience. One of the mind's most persistent illusions is the idea of a fixed, permanent self. We cling to an image of who we are, built from past experiences, societal conditioning, and our own interpretations. This conceptual self feels very real, very solid, and we spend a great deal of energy defending it, promoting it, and worrying about its future. However, if we look closely, we see that everything about us is constantly changing. Our bodies, our thoughts, our emotions, our circumstances. What we identify as me is more like a flowing river than a static monument. The illusion of a permanent self is a root cause of much anxiety and insecurity, because life, in its very nature, is impermanent and ever-changing. When we try to hold onto a fixed identity in a constantly shifting world, we create friction and suffering. Letting go of this rigid self-concept and embracing the fluid, dynamic nature of our being can bring a profound sense of liberation and ease. It allows us to adapt, to grow, and to meet life's changes with greater flexibility and less resistance. Another powerful illusion created by the mind is the projection of happiness onto external things or future achievements. We tell ourselves, I will be happy when I get that promotion, when I find the perfect partner, when I have more money, when I retire. This when-then thinking keeps us in a perpetual state of striving and dissatisfaction, always chasing a future that, even when attained, often fails to deliver the lasting fulfillment we imagined. The mind convinces us that peace and contentment are out there, contingent upon certain conditions being met. But true, sustainable happiness is an inside job. It arises from a state of inner balance, from cultivating qualities like gratitude, compassion, and presence, regardless of external circumstances. This doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or aspirations, but it means understanding that our inner well-being doesn't have to be held hostage by them. The illusion is that the destination holds the key, when in fact, the way we travel, the quality of our inner state moment by moment, is where genuine contentment is found. The mind also has a strong negativity bias, an evolutionary inheritance that helped our ancestors survive by being hyper-aware of threats. In today's world, this bias often translates into excessive worry, rumination on past mistakes, and a tendency to focus on what's wrong rather than what's right. The mind can be like a faulty filter, highlighting the negative experiences and downplaying the positive ones. This creates a distorted perception of reality, making life seem more threatening and problematic than it actually is. We get caught in loops of anxious thoughts, replaying worst-case scenarios, and feeling a persistent sense of unease. Recognizing this negativity bias is the first step towards counteracting it. We can consciously choose to cultivate a more balanced perspective, to intentionally focus on gratitude, to acknowledge our strengths and successes, and to challenge the catastrophic thinking that often fuels anxiety. This isn't about ignoring real problems, but about not letting the mind's inherent bias color our entire experience of life in shades of gray. Furthermore, the mind creates illusions around control. We often believe we have, or should have, more control over external events and other people than we actually do. This desire for control stems from a deep-seated need for security and predictability. When things don't go according to our plans, or when people don't behave as we expect, we experience frustration, anger, and anxiety. The reality is that much of life is inherently uncontrollable. The weather, the economy, the actions of others, these are largely outside our sphere of direct influence. The illusion of control leads to a constant struggle against the natural flow of life. True freedom comes not from controlling everything around us, but from cultivating control over our own responses, our own inner state. It's about accepting what we cannot change, having the courage to change what we can, primarily ourselves, and the wisdom to know the difference. This shift in perspective can dramatically reduce stress and increase our sense of inner peace as we learn to flow with life rather than constantly fighting against it. Learning to see through these illusions of the mind is not about waging war against the mind itself, but about developing wisdom and discernment. It's like learning to read a map. The map is not the territory, but it can be a useful guide if we understand its symbols and limitations. Our thoughts are like that map. They are representations, interpretations, not reality itself. Meditation and mindfulness practices are invaluable tools in this process. They help us to step back from the ceaseless flow of thoughts and observe them with a degree of detachment. As we do this, we begin to recognize their patterns, their repetitive nature, and their often illusory basis. We start to see that thoughts are just thoughts, transient mental events, not commandments or absolute truths. This insight is profoundly liberating. It doesn't mean the thoughts will stop, but it means they no longer have the same power to dictate our feelings and actions. We become less a prisoner of our own minds and more a conscious inhabitant, able to navigate its landscapes with greater skill and peace. Being present, the present moment is the only reality we ever truly experience. The past is gone, a collection of memories and interpretations. The future is yet to arrive, a realm of possibilities and projections. Yet, so much of our mental energy is spent dwelling on the past, replaying regrets, holding on to grievances, or worrying about the future, anticipating problems, fearing uncertainties. This constant mental time travel robs us of the richness and vitality of the here and now. When we are not present, we miss out on life itself. The gentle touch of a breeze, the warmth of sunlight, the taste of our food, the sound of a loved one's voice. These simple yet profound experiences are only available to us in the present. Learning to anchor our awareness in the present moment is a fundamental key to mental well-being and a deeper appreciation of life. It is here, in the now, that we find our true power and our truest peace, a sanctuary from the storms of yesterday and tomorrow. Our minds, however, are naturally restless, conditioned to jump from one thought to another, rarely settling in the present. This is often referred to as the monkey mind, constantly chattering, easily distracted, and always seeking something new. This isn't a flaw, but rather a characteristic of an untrained mind. The practice of being present is about gently training this monkey mind, not by force, but by repeatedly and kindly bringing it back to an anchor, such as the breath, bodily sensations, or the sounds around us. Each time we notice our mind has wandered and we gently guide it back, we are strengthening our presence muscle. It's a practice of patience and persistence, understanding that distractions are inevitable, but our ability to return to the present is what matters. Over time, the mind becomes a little calmer, a little more settled, and we find ourselves able to inhabit the present moment with greater ease and for longer periods. This doesn't mean thoughts disappear, but they no longer dominate our awareness quite so fiercely. One of the greatest benefits of being present is the reduction of anxiety and worry. Anxiety is almost always rooted in future-oriented thinking. What if scenarios that may or may not ever happen? When we are fully engaged in the present moment, there is often no immediate threat, no actual problem to be solved right here, right now. By bringing our attention to our current sensory experience, what we can see, hear, feel, taste, and smell, we ground ourselves in reality rather than getting lost in the mind's fearful projections. For example, if you are feeling anxious, try focusing on the sensation of your feet on the floor, the feeling of your breath entering and leaving your body, or the sounds in your environment. This simple act of anchoring to the present can interrupt the cycle of anxious thoughts and bring a sense of calm and stability. It reminds us that in this very moment, we are often okay. This immediate reality can be a powerful antidote to the imagined terrors of the future. Being present also enhances our connection with others. How often have we been in a conversation only to realize that our mind was somewhere else, replaying a past event or planning what to say next? When we are not fully present with another person, we miss the subtleties of their communication, their tone of voice, their body language, the unspoken emotions. True connection, true empathy requires our full attention. By cultivating presence, we become better listeners, more attuned to the needs and feelings of those around us. This deepens our relationships and fosters a greater sense of intimacy and understanding. When someone feels truly heard and seen, it is a profound gift, and that gift can only be given when we are fully present with them. This conscious engagement transforms interactions from superficial exchanges into meaningful encounters, enriching both our lives and the lives of those we connect with. The practice of presence also allows us to access a deeper wellspring of creativity and intuition. When the mind is cluttered with past regrets and future worries, there is little space for new ideas or insights to emerge. By quieting the mental chatter and settling into the present, we create an inner environment conducive to inspiration. Many artists, writers, and innovators speak of their best ideas coming to them in moments of stillness, when they were fully absorbed in their current activity or simply being quiet. Presence opens us up to a more intuitive way of knowing, a wisdom that arises from beyond the confines of analytical thought. It allows us to tap into a deeper intelligence that is always available when we learn to listen. This isn't about forcing creativity, but about creating the conditions for it to naturally unfold by being open and receptive in the present moment. Cultivating presence is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing practice, a way of life. It involves making a conscious choice, again and again, to bring our attention back to the here and now. Simple activities can become anchors for presence: mindful eating, where we savor each bite; mindful walking, where we feel the contact of our feet with the earth; mindful listening, where we fully absorb sounds without judgment. Even mundane tasks like washing dishes or brushing our teeth can become opportunities to practice presence if we engage in them with full awareness. The beauty of this practice is its accessibility. It doesn't require any special equipment or location. It only requires our willingness to show up for our own lives, moment by moment. As we integrate presence into our daily routines, we begin to discover a profound sense of peace, joy, and aliveness that was always there, waiting to be noticed, just beneath the surface of our busy minds. This is the art of living fully, finding calm. In the midst of life's inevitable storms, the challenges, the uncertainties, the emotional upheavals, there exists within each of us a capacity for profound calm, an inner sanctuary that remains untouched by external chaos. Finding this calm is not about eliminating difficulties from our lives, for that is an impossible task. Rather, it is about cultivating an inner state of balance and equanimity that allows us to navigate these difficulties with greater wisdom and less distress. This inner calm is like the deep ocean, which remains still and undisturbed even when the surface is turbulent with waves and wind. It is our inherent nature, though often obscured by the agitation of an untrained mind. The journey to finding calm is a journey inward, a process of uncovering and nurturing this deep, abiding peace that resides at the core of our being. This is not a passive state, but an active engagement with our inner world. One of the most direct pathways to finding calm is through the practice of mindful breathing. The breath is a remarkable anchor, always available to us and intimately connected to our physiological and psychological state. When we are stressed or anxious, our breathing tends to become shallow, rapid, and irregular. Conversely, when we are calm and relaxed, our breath is typically slow, deep, and even. By consciously regulating our breath, by intentionally slowing it down and deepening it, we can send a signal to our nervous system to shift from a state of arousal, the fight or flight response, to a state of relaxation, the rest and digest response. Simply taking a few moments throughout the day to focus on your breath, noticing the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body, allowing the abdomen to rise and fall naturally, can have a significant calming effect. This isn't about forcing the breath, but about gently guiding it and observing it with kind attention. Another powerful practice for cultivating calm is meditation, particularly forms that emphasize stillness and awareness. Regular meditation practice helps to quiet the mental chatter, reduce rumination, and foster a sense of inner spaciousness. It's like regularly cleaning a cluttered room. With each session, we clear away some of the mental debris, making more space for peace and clarity. This doesn't mean that thoughts will cease entirely during meditation. That's a common misconception. Rather, we learn to observe our thoughts without getting entangled in them, allowing them to arise and pass like clouds in the sky. This creates a sense of detachment from the mind's constant activity, and in that detachment, we find calm. Even short periods of daily meditation, consistently practiced, can gradually retrain the mind, making it less reactive and more naturally inclined towards stillness. It's a gentle discipline that yields profound rewards in terms of inner stability. Spending time in nature is also a deeply effective way to find calm and restore our inner balance. There is something inherently soothing about the natural world. The rustling of leaves, the song of birds, the vastness of the sky, the rhythmic sound of waves. Nature operates at its own pace, unhurried and harmonious, and immersing ourselves in it can help to recalibrate our own inner rhythms. When we feel overwhelmed by the pressures of modern life, a walk in a park, a forest, or by the sea can act as a powerful antidote. It reminds us of a larger, more ancient order and helps to put our own worries into perspective. The sensory experiences of nature, the fresh air, the scent of pine or damp earth, the feeling of sunlight on our skin, have a grounding effect, pulling us out of our heads and into the present moment where calm naturally resides. This connection to the earth is a vital part of our human experience. Cultivating an attitude of acceptance is also crucial for finding calm. Much of our inner turmoil arises from resisting what is, fighting against uncomfortable emotions, unpleasant situations, or unwelcome changes. This resistance creates tension and suffering. Acceptance, on the other hand, doesn't mean resignation or passivity. It means acknowledging reality as it is without judgment or struggle, especially when it's something we cannot change. When we accept our current experience, even if it's painful, we free up the energy that was being consumed by resistance. This allows us to respond to the situation more wisely and resourcefully. For example, if you are feeling anxious instead of fighting the anxiety, try to gently acknowledge its presence. Observe the sensations in your body and allow it to be there without adding a layer of judgment or fear about the anxiety itself. This paradoxical approach of allowing can often lead to a significant reduction in distress and a greater sense of inner calm. Ultimately, finding calm is an ongoing practice, a commitment to nurturing our inner landscape. It involves developing self-awareness, learning to manage our thoughts and emotions more skillfully, and making conscious choices that support our well-being. It's about creating moments of stillness in our busy lives, prioritizing rest and rejuvenation, and connecting with sources of peace, whether it's through breathwork, meditation, nature, or cultivating acceptance. This journey is unique to each individual, but the underlying principle is the same. Calm is not something to be found externally, but something to be cultivated internally. As we consistently tend to this inner garden, the seeds of peace will grow, providing us with a resilient and abiding sense of calm that can weather any storm life may bring. This inner stillness becomes our anchor, our refuge, and our greatest strength. It is a gift we give ourselves, one that enriches every aspect of our existence. Self-kindness. In our often relentless pursuit of self-improvement and our tendency towards harsh self-criticism, we frequently overlook one of the most vital ingredients for mental well-being: self-kindness or self-compassion. We can be incredibly understanding and supportive when a friend is struggling, yet when we ourselves make a mistake or experience a setback, our inner critic often unleashes a torrent of blame and judgment. This internal harshness not only feels terrible, but is also counterproductive. It undermines our resilience, fuels anxiety and depression, and makes it harder to learn from our experiences. Self-kindness, in contrast, involves treating ourselves with the same understanding, empathy, and support that we would offer to a dear friend in a similar situation. It's about recognizing our shared humanity, the fact that to be human is to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to experience suffering. It's not about self-pity or letting ourselves off the hook, but about fostering a warm, supportive inner environment. One of the core components of self-kindness is mindfulness, being aware of our suffering in a clear and balanced way. Often, when we are struggling, we either get overwhelmed and consumed by our negative emotions, or we try to suppress or ignore them. Mindfulness allows us to acknowledge our pain without exaggerating it or running away from it. We can say to ourselves, "This is a moment of suffering," or "This is really hard right now." This simple act of recognition, of turning towards our pain with awareness, is an act of kindness in itself. It validates our experience and creates a space for a more compassionate response rather than immediately jumping to self-criticism or judgment. It allows us to see our struggles with clarity and honesty, which is the first step towards addressing them constructively. This mindful awareness prevents us from getting lost in the drama of our own distress. Another key aspect of self-kindness is recognizing our common humanity. When we fail or feel inadequate, we often feel isolated, as if we are the only ones experiencing such difficulties. This sense of separation exacerbates our suffering. Self-kindness reminds us that imperfection, failure, and struggle are universal human experiences. Everyone makes mistakes, everyone feels pain, everyone has moments of inadequacy. Understanding this interconnectedness helps us to feel less alone in our struggles. Instead of thinking, "Why me?" or "What's wrong with me?" we can shift to a more compassionate perspective. This is part of being human. Others have felt this way too. This realization softens the edges of our self-judgment and connects us to a larger web of human experience, fostering a sense of belonging even in difficult times. It normalizes our imperfections rather than pathologizing them. The third element is self-kindness itself, actively soothing and comforting ourselves when we are distressed. This can take many forms. It might involve gentle self-talk, like saying to yourself, "It's okay, you're doing the best you can," or "This is tough, but you'll get through it." It could also involve physical gestures of comfort, such as placing a hand over your heart or giving yourself a gentle hug. Actions that can actually trigger the release of soothing neurochemicals. It might mean engaging in activities that nurture you, like taking a warm bath, listening to calming music, or spending time in nature. The key is to respond to our own suffering with warmth, understanding, and a genuine desire to alleviate it, rather than with impatience or criticism. This active component of self-soothing is what distinguishes self-kindness from mere self-acceptance. It's about proactively caring for ourselves. It's important to distinguish self-kindness from self-esteem. Self-esteem is often based on evaluations and comparisons, feeling good about ourselves because we perceive ourselves as successful, competent, or better than others in some way. This can be fragile, as it depends on external validation or constant achievement. Self-kindness, however, is not dependent on circumstances or evaluations. It's a way of relating to ourselves with unconditional acceptance and care, regardless of our successes or failures. We can be kind to ourselves even when we feel we've fallen short, even when we're acutely aware of our flaws. This makes self-kindness a much more stable and reliable source of inner strength and well-being. It provides a foundation of support that is always there for us, especially when we need it most, during times of difficulty or perceived failure, when self-esteem might falter. Cultivating self-kindness is a practice, and like any practice, it takes time and intention. We can start by noticing our self-critical thoughts without judgment, and then consciously choosing to reframe them with a more compassionate inner voice. We can practice mindful self-compassion breaks throughout the day, especially when we feel stressed or overwhelmed. We can learn to forgive ourselves for past mistakes, recognizing that we were doing the best we could with the knowledge and resources we had at the time. As we become more adept at treating ourselves with kindness, we often find that our resilience increases, our emotional well-being improves, and our relationships with others become more compassionate as well. Self-kindness is not selfish. It's a fundamental aspect of emotional health that allows us to show up more fully and authentically in all areas of our lives. It's a gift of warmth we offer to the person we will spend every moment of our life with, ourselves. Changing tides. One of the most profound truths of existence, yet one we often resist, is the principle of impermanence. Everything is in a constant state of flux. Seasons change, thoughts arise and pass, emotions ebb and flow, our bodies age, relationships evolve, and even mountains erode over eons. Nothing remains static. Understanding and accepting this fundamental nature of reality can dramatically reduce our suffering. Much of our anxiety, frustration, and disappointment stems from clinging to things as if they were permanent, or from resisting changes that are inevitable. We want pleasant experiences to last forever, and unpleasant ones to disappear immediately. This attachment to permanence in an impermanent world is a primary source of inner conflict. Learning to embrace the changing tides of life rather than fighting against them opens the way to greater peace and adaptability. It allows us to flow with life rather than be battered by its currents. Consider our emotions. They are like weather patterns, sometimes sunny and calm, other times stormy and turbulent. If we expect to feel happy and peaceful all the time, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. Emotions are transient. They arise in response to various internal and external stimuli, and they naturally pass if we allow them to. However, when we cling to positive emotions, we fear their departure. When we resist negative emotions, we often intensify and prolong them. The wisdom lies in recognizing emotions as temporary states, observing them with mindful awareness as they come and go, without getting swept away or trying to force them to stay or leave. Just as we don't try to stop the rain, we can learn to allow our emotional weather to pass through us, knowing that sunshine will eventually return. This acceptance of emotional fluidity is key to navigating our inner landscape with grace. This principle of impermanence also applies to our thoughts. The mind produces an endless stream of thoughts, but they are not solid, fixed entities. They are fleeting mental events. Yet, we often grab onto certain thoughts, particularly negative or worrisome ones, and ruminate on them, giving them far more power and longevity than they inherently possess. We identify with these thoughts, believing them to be absolute truths about ourselves or the world. Understanding that thoughts are impermanent allows us to create some distance from them. We can learn to observe them as they arise and pass, like clouds drifting across the sky, without having to believe every single one or act on every impulse they generate. This detachment from the content of our thoughts brings a sense of freedom and prevents us from becoming entangled in unhelpful mental loops. It helps us realize that we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness that observes them. Even our sense of self, which often feels so solid and continuous, is subject to impermanence. The person we were 10 years ago is different from the person we are today, and we will be different again in 10 years. Our cells are constantly regenerating, our experiences shape us, our perspectives evolve. Clinging to a fixed identity can limit our growth and make it difficult to adapt to new circumstances. Embracing the impermanent, ever-evolving nature of our being allows for greater flexibility, learning, and self-discovery. It frees us from the burden of having to be a certain way and opens us up to the possibility of continual transformation. When we understand that change is the only constant, we can meet life's challenges and opportunities with a more open and curious mind, rather than with fear and resistance to the unknown future unfolding before us. The beauty of impermanence, though it can sometimes feel unsettling, is that it also means that suffering is not permanent. Difficult times, painful emotions, challenging situations, these too shall pass. When we are in the midst of hardship, it can feel like it will last forever. But remembering the law of impermanence can offer a glimmer of hope and resilience. It reminds us that even the darkest nights eventually give way to dawn. This understanding can help us to endure difficulties with greater patience and fortitude, knowing that change is inevitable. It doesn't diminish the pain of the present moment, but it can prevent us from falling into despair by offering a broader perspective, a context in which the current struggle is but one phase in the ever-shifting landscape of our lives. This can be a profound source of comfort and strength when facing adversity. Embracing impermanence doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means engaging with life fully, appreciating the preciousness of each moment, precisely because it is fleeting. When we understand that nothing lasts forever, we can cherish our relationships, our experiences, and our opportunities more deeply. We can learn to let go of what no longer serves us, old habits, outdated beliefs, past grievances, with greater ease, making space for new growth and new beginnings. The acceptance of impermanence cultivates a sense of gratitude for the present and a courageous openness to the future. It teaches us to dance with the changing tides of life, finding stability not in holding on, but in our ability to adapt, to flow, and to find peace amidst the constant unfolding of existence. This is the path to true freedom, a path walked with an open heart and a mind at ease with the natural order of things. Daily practice. The journey towards greater mental well-being and inner peace is not a destination to be reached quickly, but rather a path to be walked consistently day by day. It is through dedicated daily practice that we gradually retrain our minds, cultivate beneficial qualities, and transform our relationship with ourselves and the world. Just as an athlete trains their body regularly to build strength and skill, or a musician practices daily to master their instrument, we too must engage in regular mental and emotional cultivation if we wish to see lasting change. Sporadic efforts may bring fleeting moments of clarity or calm, but it is the sustained commitment to practice that builds a resilient foundation of inner peace and wisdom. This isn't about adding another burden to our already busy lives, but about integrating small, meaningful practices that nourish our inner being and support our deepest aspirations. The form of daily practice can vary greatly depending on individual preferences and needs. For some, it might be a few minutes of silent meditation each morning, focusing on the breath or cultivating loving kindness. For others, it could involve mindful movement like yoga or qigong, which helps to connect mind and body and release tension. Reading inspirational texts, journaling, spending time in nature, or engaging in acts of service can also be powerful practices. The key is not so much what we do, but the intention and consistency with which we do it. Even 5 or 10 minutes of dedicated practice each day, done with sincerity, can have a profound cumulative effect over time. It's about creating a sacred space in our day, a moment to pause, to connect with ourselves, and to consciously nurture the qualities we wish to develop, such as patience, compassion, or presence. One of the primary benefits of daily practice is that it helps to counteract the mind's habitual tendencies towards distraction, negativity, and reactivity. Our minds have well-worn grooves, patterns of thinking and reacting that have been reinforced over years. Daily practice provides an opportunity to gently carve new pathways, to cultivate more wholesome mental habits. Each time we sit in meditation and bring our wandering mind back to the breath, we are strengthening our capacity for focused attention. Each time we consciously choose a compassionate response over an angry one, we are rewiring our emotional circuitry. This is a gradual process, like a cordon that shapes the landscape slowly but surely. There will be days when practice feels easy and rewarding, and other days when it feels challenging or unproductive. The important thing is to maintain the discipline of showing up, regardless of our mood or the perceived quality of the session. Daily practice also serves as an anchor, a point of stability in the midst of life's inevitable ups and downs. When we have a regular practice, it becomes a reliable refuge, a place we can return to when we feel overwhelmed, stressed, or confused. It provides a sense of continuity and grounding, reminding us of our deeper intentions and values, even when external circumstances are chaotic. This regular return to our inner center helps to build resilience, so that when challenges arise, we are better equipped to meet them with calm, clarity, and wisdom, rather than being completely destabilized. It's like having a well-maintained boat. When the storms come, we are more likely to navigate them successfully. This inner work is an investment in our capacity to handle whatever life brings our way with a measure of grace. Furthermore, daily practice deepens our self-awareness. As we consistently turn our attention inward, we become more attuned to the subtle workings of our own mind and heart. We begin to recognize our habitual thought patterns, our emotional triggers, and the underlying beliefs that shape our experience. This growing self-understanding is invaluable, as it allows us to work more skillfully with our inner landscape. We can start to see where we get stuck, where we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves, and where we have opportunities for growth and healing. This clarity is not always comfortable, as it may reveal aspects of ourselves we'd rather not see, but it is essential for genuine transformation. Without awareness, we remain prisoners of our conditioning. With awareness, we gain the power to choose a different way. The commitment to daily practice is ultimately an act of profound self-care and self-respect. It is an acknowledgement that our inner well-being matters, and that we are willing to invest time and effort in nurturing it. It's about taking responsibility for our own happiness and growth, rather than waiting for external circumstances or other people to provide them. This path requires patience, discipline, and a gentle perseverance. There will be moments of doubt and discouragement, but if we stay true to our intention, the fruits of practice will inevitably ripen, bringing greater peace, wisdom, and compassion into our lives. It's a journey of 1,000 miles that begins with a single step, taken each day with an open heart and a willing spirit. This consistent, loving attention to our inner world is perhaps the greatest gift we can give ourselves. True freedom, the culmination of this inner journey, this dedicated practice of understanding our minds, cultivating presence, and embracing the realities of existence, leads towards what we might call true freedom. This isn't freedom in the ordinary sense of being able to do whatever we want whenever we want. That kind of freedom is often illusory and dependent on external conditions. True freedom is an inner state, a liberation from the tyranny of our own reactive patterns, our limiting beliefs, and the ceaseless demands of the ego. It is the freedom to respond to life with wisdom and compassion, rather than being driven by fear, anger, or craving. It is the peace that comes from understanding our true nature, which is inherently spacious, aware, and untroubled by the surface agitations of the mind. This freedom is not an escape from life, but a deeper, more authentic engagement with it. This inner freedom manifests as a profound sense of equanimity, an ability to maintain inner balance and composure amidst the changing circumstances of life. It doesn't mean we no longer experience joy or sadness, pleasure or pain. It means that these experiences no longer have the power to completely destabilize us or dictate our sense of well-being. We can experience the full spectrum of human emotions without being a slave to them. We learn to ride the waves of life with skill and grace, neither clinging to the crests nor despairing in the troughs. This emotional resilience comes from a deep understanding that all experiences are impermanent and that our true essence, our awareness, remains untouched by their arising and passing. It's the unshakable peace that comes from knowing who we are beyond the temporary states of mind and body. True freedom also involves a liberation from the relentless cycle of craving and aversion. So much of our suffering arises from wanting things to be different than they are, wanting pleasant experiences to continue, wanting unpleasant experiences to cease, and constantly seeking new sources of gratification. This endless pursuit keeps us on a treadmill of dissatisfaction. As we cultivate inner peace and contentment through practice, our dependence on external circumstances for happiness diminishes. We begin to find joy and fulfillment in simpler things, in the present moment, and in the richness of our inner life. The desperate need to acquire, to achieve, or to control begins to soften, replaced by a sense of sufficiency and gratitude. This doesn't mean we become ambitionless, but our motivations shift from a place of lack to a place of fullness, from drivenness to inspired action. Ultimately, true freedom is the peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that comes from aligning ourselves with the deepest truths of existence. It is the natural state of a mind that is clear, calm, and compassionate. It is not something we acquire from the outside, but something we uncover within ourselves through diligent practice and sincere inquiry. This freedom allows us to live with authenticity, courage, and an open heart, navigating the complexities of life with wisdom and grace. It is the capacity to love fully, to live presently, and to meet both joy and sorrow with an unshakable inner peace. This is the promise of the inner path, a freedom that is available to every one of us, should we choose to undertake the journey. It is the discovery of the radiant, boundless awareness that is our truest home, a sanctuary of peace within. This path, this exploration of our inner world, is perhaps the most important journey we can ever undertake. It's not always easy. It requires courage to face ourselves, patience to undo old habits, and consistent effort to cultivate new ways of being. But the rewards are immeasurable, a life lived with greater peace, deeper meaning, and a resilient heart. The insights we've touched upon today are not just concepts, but invitations to experience a different quality of life, one where the mind becomes an ally, not an antagonist. The final key is this: the capacity for profound peace and unwavering strength already resides within you. It is not something you need to acquire, but something you need to uncover. It is your inherent nature. Trust this, nurture it, and you will find a freedom you never thought possible, a sanctuary within that no external storm can ever truly breach. This is the gift of awareness. This video felt like a warm hug for my soul. I've been struggling so much with overthinking and anxiety, and hearing these words, especially about the mind's illusions and the power of presence, just clicked. It's like a weight has been lifted. Time to start my daily practice. Thank you for sharing this wisdom.